What is going on YouTube? In today's video, we're going to be checking out the brand new ROG Ally X. Now, this is the newest addition to the PC handheld market, which has been booming over the last 2 to 3 years here. So in today's video, my main focus is to go over the differences or the main reasons that anybody might want to consider upgrading from the original Ally to the new Ally X. Keep in mind that the Ally X is not an Ally 2. So if you're looking for a big jump in performance, this is not it. I'm just gonna get that right off the plate at the beginning of the video so you guys don't get too excited about that. But that's not to say there's not any kind of improvement in that department as well. And you'll see as we go throughout the video. All right, let's go ahead and check out the Ally versus the Ally X. Both models of the Ally were designed with cutting edge technology, but the Ally X built upon the Ally's technology, bringing it closer to being the ultimate handheld gaming PC. Keep in mind that the X is more of a refresh than the next iteration of the Ally. It still runs on the same AMD Z1 Extreme APU and uses the same 7-inch AMD FreeSync display with a max resolution of 1080p and 120Hz of maximum refresh rate. According to ASUS, the reason they kept the same SoC on the Ally X was to keep its price point competitive. Every other thing has been upgraded, improved, or modified, making the Ally X a more capable handheld gaming device. Now, let's check out the differences between the two of them. First off, the Ally X ships in a box identical to the original model, except it is black this time. Inside, you will find your new device and a 65-watt USB-C charger, just like with the original. The first model of the ROG Ally was available exclusively in white. In contrast, the Ally X comes only in black. According to the ASUS reps I spoke with about this, the color differentiation was intentional to help potential buyers easily distinguish between the two models, especially since they look almost identical. This smart design choice will help eliminate any confusion when choosing between the two. The Ally X also now weighs approximately 70 grams more than the original Ally, which is something I noticed the first time I picked it up. The main reason for the additional weight is the addition of a large battery, twice the size of the one in the original Ally. ASUS was able to keep the Ally X relatively light in comparison to the Ally by reducing the weight in other places like, for example, the chassis. So far, I found that this is not a major concern as I didn't notice the impact of the additional weight due to other improvements in ergonomics. Speaking of which, on the original model, many people, including myself, found overall ergonomics to be a bit of an issue. This has now been addressed in the Ally X through several improvements. One of the main ones is the new placement of the joysticks. They've been moved closer to the D-pad and the ABXY buttons on both sides, providing better accessibility and comfort. Additionally, the joysticks are now slightly smaller than those on the original, further enhancing the overall user experience. The sticks on the X also now have tighter springs and are much more durable than the ones on the original. Something else to keep in mind is that users can also install third-party Hall effect joysticks on the X for anyone who wants even better sticks. Besides the changes that have been made to the joysticks, the ABXY buttons and the D-pad have also been modified a bit, with the X now having an 8-way D-pad instead of the 4 on the Ally, as well as better ABXY buttons with improved tactility. The two rear buttons on the Ally X are also now much smaller and less intrusive than the ones on the original, which makes them much easier to use. Another very important improvement in ergonomics on the Ally X is to the hand grips. They're now much more substantial than the original Ally, with a carefully contoured curvature to the edges that feel more comfortable to use, especially for extended periods. This creates a much better handheld gaming PC experience on the X than the original. Cooling is critical for any high-performance device, and both the Ally and Ally X have efficient cooling systems. However, the Ally X features an upgraded cooling system that keeps it cooler than the Ally during prolonged gaming sessions. The main difference is that the Ally X now has smaller, more efficient fans with larger air intake vents, which significantly contributes to its better cooling performance. Additionally, the Ally X has an additional airflow channel with a third exhaust vent right above the screen. This adds to the cooling performance of the other fans and also keeps the screen cool after intense gaming sessions. This extra vent plays a crucial role in maintaining lower temperatures even during the most demanding gameplay sessions. I tested this multiple times by gaming in turbo mode for extended periods while monitoring the screen's temperature. The difference in heat dissipation between the X and the original was definitely noticeable, albeit it wasn't a lot. It's also worth noting that even with the addition of a third fan, the X still somehow manages to sound a bit quieter than the original, especially in turbo mode. The overall improvement in the Ally X's cooling system not only adds to its performance but also prolongs the lifespan of its components. The original model of the Ally came with a default internal storage of 512GB, which is nothing for PC gaming, and also keep in mind that all of that isn't usually available. The Ally X essentially doubles that, coming with 1TB of advertised storage and 952GB that's actually usable. This is a solid improvement from the original, and if you still want more, then you'll be happy to hear about this next change. One of the most significant upgrades in the Ally X is the transition from 2230 drives to 2280 drives. This change means access to a lot more storage options, allowing users to add up to an incredible 8TB drive into the device. In the past, people had to modify the original Ally to install 2280 drives, but that is no longer the case with the X, and this is a highly requested upgrade that I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate. In my experience, 2280 drives are also faster and more affordable than 2230 drives, so increasing the default storage on the X will now be less expensive than on the Ally. This upgrade is a definite game changer, especially for anyone who prefers to have a ton of storage for their gaming and other needs. The SD card slot placement on the original Ally has always been an issue for a lot of people, so this was addressed by ASUS in the Ally X. The slot has now been moved to a different spot and is no longer overlapping the heat vent on the new device. So far, this seems to be working great, and SD cards I've used in the new slot haven't caused me any issues at all. I guess time will tell with this one, but I'm pretty confident that this issue isn't going to be a thing with the Ally X based on the new placement. I've always said that every handheld gaming PC needs to have a minimum of 2 USB Type-C ports, but the original Ally only came with one. ASUS has now replaced the XG mobile port on the original with an additional USB Type-C port. The introduction of this port in the Ally X is another notable enhancement because it adds a whole new level of versatility to it. The original model has a single Type-C port that uses USB 3.2 protocol with slow transfer speeds and limited functionality. On the other hand, the newly added Type-C port uses USB 4 protocol, which brings with it faster transfer speeds and more functionality. USB 4 offers improved connectivity options, making it easier to connect various peripherals and accessories to the Ally X. This feature is particularly beneficial for anyone who requires quick and efficient data transfer on the X. With multiple Type-C ports, you can also now use a separate Type-C device with the Ally X while it receives a charge through the second port. This will make a big impact for anyone who plans on using external monitors or AR glasses with the X. The fact that the port uses USB 4 protocol also means that the X can now be used with portable Thunderbolt external GPUs for added performance. Now, this was already possible to do with the original Ally using the XG mobile port, but that was restricted to only ASUS eGPUs. By replacing the XG mobile port with a USB 4 port, the Ally X is also now compatible with third-party eGPU options. Keep in mind though that the XG mobile port will provide better performance than the new Type-C port due to allowing a higher bandwidth pass-through. While both models are equipped with the same exact powerful Z1 Extreme processor, the Ally X does have a slight bit of performance edge over the original Ally, mainly due to the new RAMs. ASUS has increased the size of the X by 50%, going from 16 to 24 gigabytes, and the speed by 17%, going from 6400 to 7500. This change translates to a much smoother gameplay experience with slightly better frame rates and better multitasking capabilities on the X. On the Ally, I also noticed I would always get error messages associated with GPU settings, preventing some games from running correctly or even at all. This would usually only happen when I have the VRAM set to the maximum of 8 gigabytes on the Ally, indicating that more might be needed. With 24 gigabytes of RAM on the X, this isn't an issue I'm experiencing any longer since we're now able to allocate up to 16 gigabytes of VRAM to any game that requires it. For example, a game like Horizon Forbidden West that usually wouldn't run on the Ally when VRAM is set to 8 now runs on the X at the same amount. Now, this is because setting VRAM to 8 gigabytes on the X isn't pushing it to the max as it was on the original. Finally, if you plan on using the X as more than a gaming device, then more RAM is going to come in handy for things like multitasking. Now, let's take a look at some gameplay benchmarks between the two devices. One of the games I've been playing a lot on PC lately is Ghost of Tsushima. It runs really well on both the original Ally and the X, but when compared closely using the same settings, performance isn't exactly the same. At 25 watts, which is the highest TDP or operating mode on any Ally, both devices performed very similar to each other, outputting frames in the 50 plus range per second at 1080p resolution. The difference started to show when I switched to the next level below. On the original Ally, that number is 15 watts, and this was able to put out 45 plus FPS with the same display settings as before. The X, on the other hand, now has higher TDP numbers for performance and silence mode. So instead of the 10 and 15 watt options on the Ally, there's now a 13 and a 17 watt option, which translates to improved performance on battery in those modes. Now, using the same display and graphics settings, I was able to get 50 plus frames per second out of the Ally X in 17 watt performance mode. Lowering the resolution from 1080 to 900 leads to even higher frame rates without affecting visual quality as much. For the rest of the games that I tested, I decided to keep TDP in turbo mode since performance and silent mode on both devices now have different TDPs.
With a stopping block. Going in? Just goes for it at this range. Comes crashing down on them with some bullshit shoot. What'll happen?
Battery life is such a crucial part of any portable device, and the Ally X delivers a very noticeable improvement in this area. The Ally X comes equipped with an 80 watt-hour battery, which is literally twice the size of the original. This means longer gaming sessions without the need for frequent recharging, which happens to be one of the biggest gripes on most handheld gaming PCs. This improvement in the Ally X is very significant, especially for people who like to game on the go. Now, even though the battery size has been doubled, that doesn't necessarily translate at the same ratio to how long the battery lasts in real-life use cases. Playing Ghost of Tsushima at 900p and 60Hz with TDP set to performance mode, I was only able to get about 1 hour and 30 minutes of gameplay from the original Ally. Now, using the same settings on the X, I was able to get close to 3 hours, which is a very significant improvement. I mean, that's almost double the time, so you can imagine other less demanding games will last even longer on the X. Another game I compared on both systems is The Last of Us Part 1. This time though, I set the TDP to turbo mode, which is equivalent to 25 watts when used on battery. This tells the device to push out the maximum performance available, sacrificing more battery life in the process. On the original Ally, I was only able to get about an hour of gameplay from a full charge at 1080p and 60 Hz. On the X, that number went up to 2 hours and about 15 minutes using the same display and graphics settings. It seems like days of getting less than an hour of game time in turbo mode are now a thing of the past. Battery life on devices like the Ally and the Ally X will always differ according to each person's use cases. Most users will experience something different from the next person unless both people use their devices in a similar way and to play similar games. For example, someone who plays a lot more retro or older games will probably get up to 5+ hours from a full charge on the X, while someone who plays graphics intensive AAA titles should only expect to get around 2+ hours dependent on graphics and display settings being used. You might be thinking that the larger battery in the Ally X has to mean longer charging time. Well, you're not wrong, but there's been an upgrade in this department as well. The 40 watt-hour battery in the original Ally could only receive a maximum of 65 watts, which adds approximately 45% of battery charge in 30 minutes. The 80 watt-hour battery, on the other hand, inside the Ally X can receive up to 100 watts, which means it can be charged at comparable speeds to the Ally, regardless of the battery being larger. Keep in mind that ASUS only provides the same 65 watt charger from the original Ally with the X as well, so you'll need to pick this up separately to benefit from the X's faster charging capability. While the ROG Ally and the refreshed ROG Ally X are both exceptional devices, the Ally X introduces a ton of key improvements that cater to a more demanding on-the-go gaming user base, making it a more complete handheld gaming PC. From better ergonomics, an additional USB Type-C port, and improved cooling to better storage options and almost twice the battery life, the Ally X stands out as a superior choice for those seeking the best in portable gaming tech at this point. Now, with all the new upgrades on the Ally X, there's also been a $100 increase in price. If you're interested in finding out more about the Ally X or the Ally, make sure to use the product links I've added down in the description box below. Go ahead and let me know down in the comment section what your thoughts are on the refreshed Ally X and if you think it's worth upgrading to for current Ally owners or picking up for new users. Okay, that's it for this one. I hope this has helped somebody out there in providing some clarity on the differences between the two models. Well, thank you guys for watching. I hope to catch you in my next video. Take care. It's Tommy. I'm out, y'all.